Hi there, my name is Corey Heyer, and this is Becky. We're gonna tell you a little bit about the night of the fires in which my house burnt down. Um, so I got a phone call from my daughter when I was staying here at this house, that our house was burning. She asked me if I was evacuating, and I didn't know what to do. So we jumped in the car from here, which I live in the same neighborhood now as my house that burnt down. So we jumped in the car and we went around the block and we made it as far into my section of the neighborhood that we could. Um, it was very scary trying to get over there. There were trees on fire. Um, there were people picking up
Trees in the
trees in the
streets.
street. Um, it was probably one of the scariest things I think I've ever I've ever encountered. Um, we made it over there and we made it into the neighborhood where the house is, and we can only make it in about one street deep. I lived on the next street in, and from what I can recollect, because things were happening
So
so
fast.
fast, um, I only made it in about 100 feet to where I knew I should just absolutely turn around and get out of there.
Fire was flying past
It was
us.
going, yeah, it was going sideways like a blowtorch. It wasn't like you see a bonfire on a windy day. It was people's wood chips in their yards were catching on fire and blowing across the street and then landing in like the corners of windows and their doors and catching the next house on fire. Um,
Every house in the neighborhood was on fire in some state of
some state of being
either
on
in
fire.
totally engulfed or just the front
and
porch.
and I have to say that my house was probably one of the first homes, once they crossed Highway 101 and into Coffey Park. My house was probably one of the first homes that was up in flames. At that point, we had left Becky's kids in bed, and because we didn't know what this was going to entail, we thought maybe there was a house on fire or something. We didn't know the magnitude of the situation. So we turned around. Um, we went past police officers that were telling us to go a certain direction, but we were not gonna go. We weren't gonna follow suit to what he said because we needed to get back home because we just knew that this was big and it was pretty scary. So we made it back here, and um, I just kind of assumed that my house was on fire, and I really didn't. There was no way that I was going to be able to make my way back into the neighborhood.
We woke up my children. We gathered a few important items in this home, a hard drive, some cash, and the children, and got in the car and
We tried to make it up Highway 101 towards Windsor, which is the next town north of us, to see if Becky's mom was going to be okay because we just knew that it was big. That being said, we didn't know where this was coming from and how it happened, but we couldn't make our way north. And when we got on the highway, we got on Highway 101. I remember seeing there were cars on fire, in the on the side of
on
the
the side
road,
of the highway.
and so we thought it was a good idea that we were going to go up on top of a hill and watch the fire and see what was really going on. However, we didn't realize that the fire was coming down that hillside too, up in Fountain Grove. And at that point, we had to turn around and we went over to my
We
parents'
drove to
house.
your
We
parents'
went to Bennett
house.
Valley on the other side of town, and we stayed there for 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
and we stood in fire watch there for 2 days. And then their neighborhood
Got
was
evacuated.
evacuated, and we had to find where we were going to go at that point.
We spent those two first dates not sleeping for 48
No,
hours.
we didn't sleep.
We listened to a radio in the
There was a hand
garage.
crank radio because we were sure we weren't going to be having power. Um, it was very scary. I remember going up on the hill behind my parents' house where we were safe, and overlooking the whole town of Santa Rosa and most of the county, and seeing the fires that were everywhere. And at that point, I just assumed my house was burnt up.
At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we got a call from my neighbors informing us that my home was still standing, and so we went back to see the neighborhood, and it came awful close to my house. And then we went to Corey's neighborhood, and there was nothing left. It looked like a war zone.
Yeah, it looked like, when someone says it literally looked like a bomb went off, I mean, if I can imagine what a bomb would look like, I mean, there was metal and trees. There was which I have pictures. I could send them to you, and I probably will. There was cars. There was metal burnt. People's rims for their tires for their from their vehicles were melted. Went down their driveway and into the gutter pan. When I went back to my house, after they finally allowed us to get back in, after the Army Corps of no, it was a National Guard, shut down the streets so that nobody can go into Coffey Park. Um, what happened? I went in there with a shovel and I started digging into my house. And if there was anything wood at all inside that house, it burnt up. There was not even, like, when you go camping and you see little black pieces that are left inside the campfire the next morning after you go to bed or whatever. There was not even that. It was all white ash. My windows were melted and in puddles. I can remember walking over my garage door to go right into where my living room is. And all I could find was like the hardware to my recliner. Um, it was, thank you. It was interesting to say the least. Now we're, it's a trip when you don't have anything. It's really kind of a trip when you don't have anything, because when you literally leave your house to come to your girlfriend's house and have nothing but a pair of sweatpants, slippers, and maybe a few miscellaneous items that were left in a vehicle or whatever. Yeah. So
It's been an adjustment.
it's been quite an adjustment. I had my routine completely changed. And as far as some of the things that I lost, I think everything that I have is dear to me is right here. I have my family. I didn't lose any pets. Um, as far as the materialistic items, um, I lost my grandma's painting that was over my fireplace. To me, that was very dear to my heart. As far as my fishing rods, as far as my exercise equipment, as far as my TV, um, that really doesn't matter. I lost all of my memories, my baby book, pictures um, since I was born. Um, my dad gave me a gold ring when I turned 30 years old. Something that I remember him wearing when he would go out and do something fancy. Um, that was in the house, and I did eventually find it, but it was in a puddle, and it was in a puddle inside of a jewelry box. I found my watch, which didn't melt. Um, we did come up with something cool. We did find something actually that was really neat. Becky gave me two chairs and a table for my birthday, and these were what survived. It's kind of a weird, but anyways, that's what was left. It was a trip because everything that was wood in that house burnt up, except for those chairs. If you look in the background, it's all gray and black. Right behind those chairs was a fence, a redwood fence, and the redwood fence burnt down. Right next to those chairs on the right hand side was my or my garden shed, which had tons of gasoline and propane and flammable things. My neighbor said my shed literally exploded. And my house is on the opposite side of that. And there's a tree overhanging it. They didn't burn up. Kind of amazing. We don't know what that's about, but it's a neat thing. My neighbor said they were gonna paint their house with whatever I painted those chairs with. Well, as far as me now,